we're so pleased to have with us Mr. Bob Wood, who spends his winters in Ukraine teaching these students. He has such a great relationship with them. Let me give you a little bit of Bob's background before I hand the microphone over to him. He earned his BA in history from Michigan State University and an MA in political science from Western Michigan University. He's taught social studies and government courses at high schools in Seattle and Muskegon, as well as at Muskegon Community College. When he's in the U.S., he resides in Grand Haven, and when in Ukraine, he lives in Lviv, Ukraine, and teaches at the Modern Foreign Language Department at Ukrainian Catholic University. So now I'm going to hand it over to Bob, and he will introduce his student. Please welcome Mr. Bob Wood.
Hey, thank you. I feel real fortunate. Like Randall said, and thank you, Randall. Randall does a really, really good job setting all of this up. And thank you to HASP. You guys got a really, really cool setup here. I talk to people all over the state about this place. I keep sending them over here, and I keep telling them you're missing out because this is just so professional. It's so well put together. You guys, I remember the first time I came in here to bring these guys here, and I'll get to these guys in a minute. And I looked at the calendar, and I thought, oh my God, you got somebody that swam the English Channel coming in and talking this afternoon. And it's crazy. I mean, I go online and look at what you're working on, and I keep saying, guys, I'm over in Muskegon, or I'm in Grand Rapids, or I'm even over in Detroit. I say, you need to get involved with this organization because it's a really, really a good thing. It's a good thing in these times that we're awake and energized, and that we feel that we're part of our government. And so kudos to all of you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm gonna introduce one. I'll introduce Masha, and then Masha can introduce Irina, and Irina can introduce Cassandra, and Cassandra can introduce Sophia. And we will have 4 gals from UCU in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. And so I think you guys got a copy of the agenda, so we know what we're going to be doing. But at the end of the day, you did? Yeah. No. Okay. At the end of the day, can somebody put that, send that thing out? Okay, thank you. At the end of the day, the most important part of this experience that I have found, and I think this is the 4th time we've been here, is the questions. Is the question and answer. It's the question and answer. And the fact that you can talk directly to these bright young students, and they can talk directly to you. And I think that these questions and answers are what drive, I don't know, awareness, awakeness, involvement. And I think that you guys, I think that your questions to the people here are as vital as their questions to you. And so at the end of the day, we have a morning session, and we will concentrate on, well, they'll tell you what we'll concentrate on before we get going. And then at any point, there's a question and answer at the end. A 30-minute, 20-minute question and answer at the end. But at any point that you need clarification, or at any point if you want to ask somebody something else in the audience, stop. Just stop it and ask the question. Because there's a chance that 6 more people are thinking the same thing. So just share, and we'll have a good day in a tough world. And I think that you will, again, thank you for allowing us to be here. And so let me introduce, or let me hand it off to, does anybody have a question for me? Okay. Masha. Masha is going to give a presentation today. Well, we're going to start. We basically have three things that we're going to do in the morning. And I'm assuming that you'll have the letter will pop around to you. Masha is going to go over how we got here in regards to 2014 to today, because the war did not begin in February of 2022. I would say the war began in, I don't know, centuries ago, but it certainly was in full swing in 2014 at the center of Kyiv. And so Masha is going to walk you through to bring you back to where we are today, which will make today so much more clear. And then all through the area, when Masha's going over that, the other girls the other young ladies, the other young people, the other adults can talk through Masha and give their opinion too. And I want to say one more thing. I know I'm talking too much, but I want to introduce this. Well, I have flags out here today. And I've had a lot of people come up and say, what a beautiful flag. We have flags on flagpoles out in front, 2 Ukrainian flags. And people have come up to me and said, what a beautiful flag. It is a beautiful flag. And I think what's interesting is people don't know that the blue field.
You're in the center, more will be able to see you.
Oh, okay. The blue field represents the blue skies of Ukraine. And the yellow is the wheat of Ukraine. And it makes it, I remember when I first heard that, I thought, oh God, what a beautiful flag. And it's so simple. And when you're in Ukraine and you're on that train from Lviv to Kyiv, you can see the blue sky in the wheat. And you realize, yeah, this is a beautiful flag. And so just so you know, your flag's out there. So Masha is from Donbass. And Donbass is at the center of this entire war. And so she has a story that we're going to start out. They'll just introduce themselves. Then we will go to the history. Then they're going to talk about how they have been affected up to this point by the war. And then we'll do questions and answers. And in the afternoon, we'll deal with what's going on Friday tomorrow. So Masha, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see me and hear me well. My name is Masha. I'm from Donetsk. It's the most eastern part of Ukraine. I'm a third-year political science student in Ukrainian Catholic University. Also, I'm a journalist and political club in Ukrainian Catholic University, where I work on writing scripts for podcasts and hosting some podcast episodes. And for me, it's a pleasure to be here today, talk to you, and share my story. I'll pass the word to Cassandra. We both became finalists of Global Undergraduate Exchange Program. So last semester we spent in the United States. So Cassandra, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hello everyone. Just like Masha said, last semester I was lucky enough to study at the University of Southern Indiana. Now I was back in Lviv. I'm traveling now, and I'm a journalism student. It's my last year, and I'm very happy to join you again.
Hello, my name is Sophia. It's also not my first time participating in such meetings. I am a philology student on my final year in Ukrainian Catholic University. Also, I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity to be here and speak to you.
Yeah, and I think I'm the last. Hello, my name is Yarina, and I'm also like the first year student at sociology at Ukrainian Catholic University, and I'm also like proactive, I would say, volunteer and actively volunteer with dogs. I think I'll have opportunity to tell you more about that while we will be explaining how war influenced our lives. And thank you so much for being here. I think we can start our program.
So now I'll tell you more about the history of this war. And as we all know, geography matters. That's why we all decided to start today's session by showing the geographical position of Ukraine. So let me know if you can see the map, the first map that we prepared. Can you see it, or I can share it if it's necessary?
Not yet.
Mhm.
It's better if you share it. Go ahead. And
Okay.
you share.
Okay. Mm. One second. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we decided to start with showing the geographical position of Ukraine and explain how the war actually started. So this map shows where Ukraine sits in Europe. Ukraine is the largest country on the continent, but it's not the only thing Ukraine is known for. Ukraine is rich for its fertile black soil, making it one of the world's top producers of sunflower products. And the East region is rich in coal and heavy industry. So notice that exactly in the east, Ukraine borders Russia, and it's something that would actually play a huge role in our history. So we're starting with maps to show that the war didn't start in 2022. It began in 2014 when Russia violated international law and illegally occupied Crimea, as well as parts of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. In 2014, Ukraine faced major political unrest, including the Revolution of Dignity and the change of government. So Russia took advantage of instability, and they held an illegitimate referendum in Crimea, which was actually falsified, and international community doesn't recognize it. So after that, they began the occupation of Donetsk and Luhansk. Yeah, we were not prepared for that.
Masha,
Yeah.
Masha, can you, is there any way for you? I don't know if they know if this is Crimea. This is Crimea.
this
And
is
okay, in
Okay.
Donetsk and
Yeah, this is the map.
yeah,
Right on the map.
go ahead, ask a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Mhm.
What is your question? Okay.
My question is, Ukrainians would still consider Crimea and the other red section up there as part of Ukraine. They just happen to be controlled by the Russians now. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're right.
We call it
Yeah,
temporary territory.
And Masha is from here. This is where she was born. So she has lived.
Yeah.
How many places have you lived?
7 cities of Ukraine. So I
Seven
changed
cities.
7 cities.
But she was born. You were here until you were 7, weren't you?
Yeah,
7 or-
yeah. So I'll tell about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. Sorry.
mhm.
Okay. Go ahead.
You're fine. So we were not prepared for such aggression, and the world didn't react strongly enough. That's why Russia could stay on those territories. As I told before, Donetsk is my hometown. I was 7 years old when everything happened, and I was too young to fully understand the events. However, it actually changed my life completely. Since then, I have moved 7 times, and my family were moving from place to place, and now it's the 12th year as it's going on. So my hometown is under Russian control. For me, Donetsk is a place where my childhood memories are. But for instance, for the rest of part of my family, this place is their entire life. For instance, my grandmother, she spent decades there. She built her own house with own hands and raised her family there. And you know, in Ukraine, we have such a tradition at midnight on New Year's Eve. We make wish for the year ahead. And for the last 11 years, my grandmother's only wish has been the same, to return back home. But she's not able to do that, and no one knows when she will be able to do that. So this is why we start our story from 2014, to show that Russians, they have been breaking international agreements for many years, and it didn't start in 2022. So when some proposed negotiations without Ukraine's presence, pushing us to give our territories, it's not about peace. So we will return to the topic of negotiations later. As you know, in 2022, Russia started a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. They attacked from different directions, including Belarus in the north, trying to reach Kiev quickly. So Russian forces occupied some of our towns around Kiev, including Bucha, and many of you maybe have heard about it in the news. So during the occupation, there were serious human rights violations and attacks on civilians. This map shows how the situation changed over that year, which areas were taken by Russia and which ones Ukraine were able to retake. And it helps to understand the scale and impact of the invasion. However, it's not the main reason I'm showing this map. Actually, it also shows that from the very first day Ukraine resisted, and month by month, we pushed the invaders back and liberated many of our territories, proving that we will never give up our country. Today, parts of Ukraine are still on.
Excuse me, can you go back again? Go back.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I wanna reflect again. Go back to the first map.
Okay, to this
Or the
one?
second, yeah, right here, this right here.
Mhm.
Just so you know that this is where, think about this, because this is where Kyiv is. This is where Crimea is. This is Donetsk and Luhansk. So when we superimpose to the next map, look at where the Russian aggression was. And Belarus is up to the north. And so they invaded from the south into Kyiv, as Masha said, and then were pushed back. Lviv, where I teach, is way over here in the west, and where these students go to school. Just so that you get a clear idea of the geography. So when it goes to the next map, just think about where the red is. There you go. And so Kyiv is up here when the Russians came down from Belarus into here, and then were pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and then the Russians came back in. Just be thinking, and if you get confused on the geography, don't worry about it. Just stop and ask a question and go back, because geography is really, really important here. Thanks.
Yes, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's why we're here, to help you, to clear everything. So yeah, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. So for right now, some parts of Ukraine are still under Russian occupation. And the main message is that these are not just the territories on the map. They are homes, schools, farms, memories of people. So millions of people are still displaced, and they're waiting for the day they can return back home. Our fight is not just for land. So we are actually fighting for our people, our identity, and the future that we all can have. So almost every day, our regions are under attack of drones or missiles. And these strikes do not only target some military objects, so they actually destroy civilian infrastructure, kill and injure people, and leave thousands without water, electricity, or heat during winter times. So air alarms, broken windows, and nights spent in a shelter, it's our reality. So it's actually parts of our daily life. And this war is not something that's happening far away. It actually affects real people every single day. So we all have different stories, but we all are affected by Russian aggression. And I'll pass the word to the girls. I'm confident they have a lot of things that they can share. So thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, just let me know. Girls, the floor is yours. You can continue.
Yeah, maybe someone would like to share their own stories of invasion or 2014, your memories, or unless someone has questions regarding maps or something else.
No, go ahead.
No questions, girls?
Questions yet? No questions yet. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can like start talking about our personal stories, and then if you have any questions, you can ask. So, when the war started, I was in the western part of Ukraine, so it was like plus or minus safe, but the first memories that came to my mind while Masha was talking about uh refugees and all people that lost their homes and like left their lives there, was that when I entered the university, I'm not from Lviv, actually, I'm from Ternopil. It's like a town near Lviv. So when I entered the university, I moved to Lviv and I was so I entered the sociology program and I wanted to do sociology a lot, and we had an opportunity on our first year of studying to work as an interviewer, and we were talking with refugees. So I talked with a lot of refugees, and to explain you how people were living there, like I would say the first year or even like year and a half after they moved from occupied territories, we have like modular buildings. It's small building, like I would say 2 meters for like 4 or 5 meters, like box, modular box, where like so hot when it's summer and cold when it's winter. It was temporary places for refugees until like government can like will be able to find them like their normal, I would say, living. And I was like I was interviewing different people, and then I saw one woman. I asked her if like she would like to take part into my interview. She said like, yeah, why not? And there were a lot of questions about um, what they would like to have in their new like living. Would they like to have like a flat or a house? Maybe one room is enough for them. So we just wanted to understand their needs. And I think on the third or on the fourth question, that woman started crying, and I was not prepared for that. Actually, I was 17 years old and I was not prepared for that. And I asked her like what happened, how can I help? Like it was a simple question about her living, and she said that she don't know because she moved to Lviv and was waiting there for her sister to come from the occupied territory where they both were living, to her, and they were going to move abroad after like her sister come. But a day before our interview, she discovered that her sister died during the moving from occupation to Russia. And she said that the problem is that I don't even have money to like transfer her body for like a normal funeral. I don't have money to have a place on the cemetery. I don't have money for nothing, and I cannot like find a job for myself. And I'm just staying here without like no hope. And hope is like actually a main important thing that all Ukrainians fighting for, because if we don't have hope, nothing work then. And that woman said that she has no hope, she has no money. The only thing that she was like waiting for that gave her hope was her sister. Now she died, and she didn't even know where like her body was. And after that, like I was talking with a lot of my friends, relatives, like worrying about them, looking for a place for them to stay if they were moving from like occupied territories or territories that were close to the border. But after that moment, I understood that like in front of me staying a person and her life is broken at all. She doesn't have like she left everything, and now she has to find at first before she starts like finding a new job, a new place for a living, she has to find enough strength inside her to move on and to understand that her life is still moving, and she don't have to stay in one place, because it is, I don't even know how to explain that feeling, because you don't know what to say to that person. Like, how can you help? Money will not help. It's just like, it's a lot of psychological, I would say, problems that we faced. And I think that maybe on that moment, girls, you want to show any other examples, or maybe we have any questions.
Maria, can you share map just
We
so
have a
people?
question here.
As you were talking, I was thinking, where are the psychiatrists and the sociologists and the people from Ukraine that can help these people who had to flee their home? Do you have any infrastructure in the way of mental health, one-on-one counseling for people who need it so desperately?
Yes, we actually, at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we had a lot of non-governmental organizations or like volunteering initiatives that were created. A lot of them were connected with psychological support. We had like people had opportunity to call and have like basic psychological support via like their phones. But of course, they, like, in that situation, they need more like deep and structured help for a longer time than just one phone call. But they were giving like advices what to do, trying to calm people. We also had that volunteering initiatives according to law, like people could have like consultation about what they can do with their like lost homes, with their, for example, children, because there were a lot of situations when part of family were moving, but part of family were still staying in the occupied territories. So we also needed a lot of like lawyers as volunteers. So yeah, at first I would say maybe most important, it was humanitarian aid, psychological help, lawyers, and I would say a lot of volunteers in different spheres. Not only that, but that three were probably priority.
Another question.
How are the people in the portion of the Ukraine that the Russians have taken over? How are they reacting to it? Are they with joy or mixed feelings? What's their psyche?
You mean Russians' reaction?
The people that are in the area of Ukraine that the Russians have taken over, how are they doing? Do you know?
I think
Yeah,
Maria can answer to the question, because she was part of the invasion and she probably has relatives or friends who stayed there. I mean, it's gonna be more related if Maria doesn't mind. If not, I can go ahead. Because
Yeah, so some of my relatives, they're still in Donetsk. And the thing is that we have completely different attitude to everything that's going on. So, you know, their political view is completely different. So people who spent 11 years under Russian influence, under occupation, their mentality is now changed. So they don't see the situation the way I see that. So it's really hard because my family now is divided. And that's why people who are under Russian influence for more than 11 years, they don't support Ukrainian side. So probably they don't react with joy. However, they don't support Ukraine because they made their own choice to stay on this occupied territories. Because in 2014, Russia changed everything. So they changed the currency. They changed the language on which students were taught in schools. So now Donetsk and Luhansk are under Russian influence, and I'm more than sure that people there, they don't really see their future on Ukrainian side. So probably they don't feel the joy. However, when the war just started, the full-scale invasion in 2022, some of my relatives from Donetsk, they told me, okay, now you'll experience everything that we are experiencing for more than 8 years, because it was in 2022. So they are brainwashed, and this is the point. They think that Ukraine is bombing them. However, what's going on is Russia. So Russia is still bombing them. However, on the news, on media, the picture that they see is that Ukraine is doing that. And they saw this picture from the very beginning, from 2014. So from the very beginning, they were brainwashed and they were shown that Ukraine is doing that. That's why their position is completely different from what we have.
Thank you.
How,
want
how
to add-
close have the hostilities come to where you are studying in Lviv?
What do you mean by hostilities?
How close has the fighting come to where you are in Lviv when you're at the university?
I mean, front line is quite far away. You can see on the map like the green there. Masha, can you open the red one, the current situation? So it's quite far away, but you need to understand the front line is not just the only areas that are being attacked and where the bombings are happening. Lviv, which is very close to border with Poland, where we are located, still being bombed from time to time, or Kyiv, for example, capital, which is not that close to frontline either, still every other night drones, they are under drones attack and ballistics attack.
Something to that as well. This is something that is really, people ask me all the time. They say, well, where is the fighting? Are you safe? Are you safe? And I feel generally in Lviv that, yeah, I'm safe. But here's the rub, here's the catch. Every single student that is at this university, every single person that's living here, every single one of these gals, they bring a different story inside their heads. So when those alarms go off, and they go off, those alarms go off often, you can't control your history. You don't know where Granny is. You don't know where your uncle is. Is he safe? Is he not safe? Is my cat safe? Is my dog safe? What did I go through to get here? And so you have this constant barrage in your brain. Whether or not you have missiles directed at you specifically, it just keeps flashing back and flashing back. I think that this country will be a country full of PTSD when this war is over. I mean, civilians, soldiers, everybody, and it's brought back to grounding. When I was sitting over here, the alarm goes off. The alarm, when it goes off, it's like the alarms that will go off during a tornado alert here. So I mean, it's like swims throughout the city. It's all over the city, and so boom, it's in your brain. And you don't know where your granny is, and you don't know there are a ton of students whose grandmothers and grandfathers say, I'm not leaving the village. I'm not. I'm going to stay here. Even if I'm in harm's way, I'm going to stay here. This is where I lived. And if I die, this is where I'll die. This is going to be my home. And I'm not going to get up and get out and move to Germany. And so everybody brings a different story to the table in their brain when all this happens. And so everybody is under attack, whether they are under attack directly or not. So there.
Was Ukraine ever a part of Russia, or what is Russia's claim on Ukraine?
I can answer. So historically it happens that we weren't technically independent as a state. You know, like medieval state, Kievan Rus. You, girls, can you remind me the date when Kievan Rus was, I mean, like 11th century, I believe,
You mean like when it
was created as a
yeah,
state.
800
Yeah, maybe 9th century.
98. Like
Yeah,
898.
that's when Rus was baptized. But anyway, so you need to understand that Moscow appeared on the map like 150 years later. So we couldn't physically be one country. And later on, the Mongols attacked Europe and Ukraine was defending, and we lost our state as a common. We were separated. So Poland took over at some point, Austro-Hungary took over at some point, and Russian Empire as well. And so Ukraine was divided in two and sometimes at three parts. And we became like the why you have impression that Ukraine used to be or is part of Russia is because when Soviets came, Soviet Union in Russian Empire happened revolution, and Bolsheviks came in 1914 to Kiev, and they suggested that we can have our autonomy as a state under Russian rule. And we mistakenly agreed, and we were independent for like 2 months in 1917. And then Soviet Union took over and occupied majority of Ukraine. And then later on, when Second World War happened, the Lutsk, you can see here, and Lviv, which were temporary part of Poland, became part of Soviet Union as well. So that's why you might have a feeling that Ukraine used to be part of Russia, but not because we wanted to, but because we were forcibly occupied.
Are the ethnicities different as you go through Ukraine? For example, in Crimea and along the area on your map that's red, is that any ethnically different than Western or Northern other places in the country?
Well, Crimea is mostly used to be Crimean Tatars, which are Muslims, but they used to be killed by Soviet Union. It still stays like majority of the population in Crimea. They are different ethnicity, and we do recognize it. That's why Crimea used to be autonomy as a part under Ukrainian rule. And during Soviet Union, in order to assimilate people, of course, they were moving people from different Soviet republics to, for example, why east of Ukraine speaks Russian? Because Soviet Union took people from middle of Russia and moved them to Ukraine, and same with Ukrainians to middle of nowhere in Russia. And you need to remember of camps as well. So mostly it's Ukrainians mixed with Russians, but it's not that diverse.
And I would also,
Russification. Oh, go ahead.
no, I just wanted to
about
add
it.
that actually Crimea Tatars, they were living on Crimea as well as like Ukrainians also were living there, but they were like Crimean Tatars, they were forced to move from Crimea, and a lot of them now are in captivity as well as Ukrainian soldiers and even civilians. And now Crimean Tatars are fighting for their identity because like the only one place where their nationality home was is Crimea, and now Russians are destroying all their landmarks, all their like traditional buildings, even the names of streets that were like called in their language, Crimea Tatar language. They are now all like taking all of that like off. Yeah, and they have like part of them now are abroad as like a diaspora, and part of them, as you can see on that map, we have near Odessa like a city Mykolaiv. So part of them live like near the Mykolaiv. They have their like most, I would say, nationality living there, but they are still fighting for Crimea because like historically it's their home for a long time, and they were always like their government were always supporting Ukraine, as well as Ukraine was always supporting like Crimean Tatars.
Yeah, if I can, I will just shortly add because the girls already gave a lot of really valuable details on that. That yeah, probably the only minor ethnicity, official minor ethnicity in Ukraine is Crimean Tatars. Of course, there are a lot of different nationalities living in Ukraine even now, but still, Crimean Tatars are like official minor ethnicity, and. I think they are really unfortunate case of how Russia provides like ethnic cleansing when it comes to occupying territories. Right now, Crimean culture, Crimean language is under the huge risk of extincting, if I can say that. And here in Ukraine, we usually try to save it. Even in our university, we have different courses for students who are willing to do that, to learn Crimean language, to learn more about Crimean culture. So this is a really important part of Ukraine, this minor ethnicity, and we try to preserve this culture and this language as much as we can in these conditions that we have.
Okay, I have a question about how you and how companies continue to operate. I use a software program for post-processing photos that I take. It's called Luminar Neo, and it was developed and founded in Ukraine. So how would a company like that, or even yourselves, operate in a situation where at any time you might be called up to go and fight in the war? I mean, how do you continue on doing your normal work, employment, school, whatever it may be, knowing that at any time you could be called to the front?
So I can start answering this question. So, our life changed a lot with the beginning of the war. But the thing is that we are used to that. So now, unfortunately, we have to be used to that, just because if we're not used to that, we won't be alive. So a lot of things happened that we had to spend a lot of our university classes in a shelter. So when we have air alarm, we usually go down to shelter and spend some time there, just because it's our safety. So it's the only way we have to survive, just because we are used to that, and we should be used to that. So what's going on for global businesses, for local businesses, and just for normal people is that during the day we can have a lot of air alarms, and we go to shelter and spend some time there. So it happened a lot for all of us that we could spend the whole night in the shelter because of huge missile attacks, and then in the morning we are still going to work, we're still studying in the universities, just because it's the way it is. So it cannot be differently. Our life continues, and we are just used to everything that's going on. So what changed starting from 2022 is some safety things. So the number of shelters, the quality of the shelters that we have, and then a lot of things are now online for people. But what about businesses? There is no guarantee that you wake up in the morning and that your business is safe and you are safe. So it happened a lot of times that all the like cafes, restaurants, they were bombed. But people are rebuilding. We are rebuilding. We're trying to live our lives. So yeah, it's the only way we have.
Can I quickly add? I want to say that we can't live like there is no tomorrow, even though it might be true. That's why I think, answering directly to your question, that businesses function, you have to understand that people are not being called to the front line since they're 18. We have it, our age is 25, because someone has to study, as I said, we need to live like there is future tomorrow. We're fighting for our future, so people have to be educated. We're supposed to have businesses running. That's why we also have booking system. Like if you're doing something crucial for, I don't know, education, for example, if you're a teacher, or you're doing something crucial, I don't know, deliveries, food supplies, you can be booked off army, and even after you reach 25 years old. Yeah.
Add to that too. Ukrainians they're so resilient. I mean, they really, really are. They just adapt and move forward. They adapt and move forward. At the same time, taking in all of what they take in. I had a student, a girl, who worked full time in their English is good. There's the English level you can see is excellent at the school. I had a gal who was working. I had her in class. She was in sociology. She worked full time online as a translator. She would set up pickups for repairs for semi trucks in Iowa. So she was working full time, 40 hours a week, and they would relay to her when they broke down on High 80 in Iowa. She knew all of the Iowan cities. I said, why do you know all of the cities in Iowa? Because they were breaking down, and then she would bring the wreckers to the trucks. And so she was familiar. She would work all night long doing that. And so they're resilient. Ukrainians are resilient, and they're tough. They have grit.
All right. To go back, someone asked, did this area belong to Russia? My grandparents, great-grandparents immigrated from Crimea. And the family story is that Catherine the Great needed farmers. She didn't have enough farmers in this area, like you were talking about the wheat. And so she went to her cousin in Germany and said, I need farmers. Here comes my family. They took whole villages and put them into Crimea. And then eventually they immigrated from Odessa. So to me, this land was Russia's. Whether you can reclaim it, I'm not so sure. The Indians can't come, the Native Americans can't come and reclaim our land. So it's the same situation, but it was Russia's.
Yeah, I think I can start here. Like, actually, Crimea history is really full of different like events. Firstly, like there were tribes living in Crimea as well as on the territory of Ukraine. Then, like Tatars, like they were not only on Crimea territory but also on the territory of Ukraine, like modern Ukraine now. And when I'm not sure how to translate right, like Zolota Orda, it's like it is a name. Yeah. So when they were moving from the territory of Ukraine, Crimean Tatars, modern Crimean Tatars, they left on the territory of Crimea, and they were living there independently, unless like Russian that story that you told about Katerina, they occupied the Crimea, and after that, Crimea was under occupation until during the Soviet Union, it was given to Ukraine, and that time Crimea was in a horrible, like I would say in a horrible state. There were nothing, there were no infrastructure, there were hunger, people like had like the lack of job there. So Ukrainian as part of Soviet Union there started working in Crimea and rebuilding it. It's like, and after that Crimea, like after Soviet Union, I I would say, like stop existing as a union. Crimea like became part of Ukraine as it was like autonomic part of Ukraine, and Crimea Tatars that were living there, they voted for that and they agreed for that. So and it was like that, everything was good, but then like in 2014 Russia occupied Crimea again.
Can I also add? I'm not gonna speak long. I'm just gonna answer, ask simple question. Ruling by that rhetoric, is it okay to take for Russia to take Alaska back because it was sold in 1967 to United States of America, and Russia
So I
took
have a
over
question.
Ukraine in 1917, even later. So we were part of Russia less than Alaska was part of US. So yeah.
A question I have for you, disregarding the annexation of Crimea, but to the actual invasion in, I think it was 22 by the Russians. Everybody predicted that Ukraine would fold in a couple of days or maybe 2 weeks. Was it a surprise to you guys, the resistance that Ukrainians put up? Second question is, what is your personal feeling about President Zelensky? Is he a good guy? Does he have your full support? I would just be interested to know what you think of him, and also how did Ukraine put off this mighty army that was supposed to take over in 2 weeks, and basically they're at a stalemate now.
So I can start talking, and the girls, you'll continue then. So talking about being a surprise or not when Ukrainians acted resistantly, actually, no, it wasn't a surprise for me, just because Russia once broke the international agreement, and that time the world didn't react strongly enough to somehow influence the thing. And when it happened the second time, when they occupied our lands and started the invasion, Ukrainians started being united and started opposing that, just because it's not okay to just go to the territory of an independent country and start occupying that. So for us, it wasn't a surprise that we will resist, that we will be in opposition of that, just because we are fighting for our country, and it's the only way for us to survive, to fight against the Russian aggression. That's why we didn't have any choice except started fighting, and this is what we did. So when the war just started, and now Ukrainians, so we are extremely connected to each other, and we're extremely united, just because we all are fighting against the same problem. So we all are fighting against one enemy that we have. That's why for us it wasn't a surprise. Talking about the president, I think it is a choice that we made, and we all know that there were a lot of positive and negative situations. However, it's the guy that we chose, so it was our conscious choice to make him a president. And if we were not satisfied with everything that he was doing, we would show that, as we did in 2014 when we had a president who were doing some things that people were not satisfied with, and we showed that. So this is how we had the revolution of dignity. So this is the point, that he could be a good guy, he could be a bad guy, but this is our choice. And a couple of weeks ago, we also had a situation when people were dissatisfied with the things that he was doing, and we showed that. We had a lot of protests happening for more than a week in all Ukrainian cities, protesting, showing that we are against that, and he heard us. So if we wanted to change him, we would do that, as we did in 2014. So this is what I can tell.
Yeah, and I would like to add about the collective memories that we have in Ukraine, like from generation to generation, as as it was like told before, a lot of years, a lot of centuries, Ukraine like suffered because of Russians. And the one important thing that we are fighting for is our language, because Russians were trying to destroy our language, to like close schools that were teaching in Ukrainian language, like destroy all books. So a lot of our writers, not only writers, activists, they were fighting for Ukrainian language and for Ukrainian, I would say, culture as identity. So that is why I think that a lot of Ukrainians, like from our generation, heard a lot of stories from their grandparents, understanding that it's not like the first time. It's like one of the lot of times before that we have to fight for our country, and a lot of our like I would say that in history, a lot of our heroes were fighting for Ukraine, and now it's like our turn.
Yeah, sorry, Sophia, one more thing. So our history is built the way that we were fighting all the time. So from the ancient times, we were fighting. And to be honest, sometimes I feel that this is our mentality. This is the mentality of Ukrainians to show their disagreement and to fight for our independence and for our freedom. That's why for us it wasn't a surprise.
Okay, go ahead,
Yes,
Sophia.
yeah, that was a great point. Yeah, I would just like to quickly add on the topic of Crimea that we were discussing earlier, because I don't think that we addressed it fully at that point. So before the meeting on Alaska was taken, there was an active propaganda process in Crimea, and there is a monument even in Crimea installed by Russia, and I wanted to citate the monument. It says, "We took Crimea back for ourselves, now you return Alaska to us." And both cases, with Alaska and with Crimea, just show the imperial narratives and the tendencies for like this, that Russia is a great empire, that they are still active in Russia. And in both cases, it's not fair to give the territories. And I really want to add that Crimea was officially a part of Ukraine for many, many years, and there wasn't a single, absolutely any legitimate and transparent process through which Russia could claim Crimea, through which Crimea itself said that it wants to be a part of Russia. There was anything like that. So to its day, Crimea is officially Ukrainian, but it's occupied by Russian Federation, and temporarily occupied. I really, really hope so. Yeah.
And it's also like not only about Ukraine, it's also about Georgia and about a lot of countries that were occupied by Russia. And I had an opportunity to talk with people from Georgia, and they said, like, if they take your territory, our territory is next, and we understand that. That's why we support you, because, like, it's their imperial narratives. And as I told before, like Crimea were given to Ukraine at 1954 officially, and Ukraine really rebuilt the territory, rebuilt from nothing, from desert, and the whole nationality, like Crimea Tatars that were living there, they all supported Ukraine and wanted to stay as part of Ukraine, not as part of Russia, because nobody wanted to be a part of Russia.
Hey, I want to thank all of you. I'm sure official thanks will come later, but you have been with us now, I believe, for 3 or 4 sessions. And I think many of us are starting to feel that we have a common bond with you. And so I thank you for that. I also want to thank you for your courage in speaking out and saying what you have said. However, I'm concerned, and I wonder if you are concerned for your personal safety. Just in terms of what potentially could happen in the future, whether or not your personal safety and well-being is a concern to you.
It would be very unhealthy if it wasn't. That would be like a red flag. Obviously, I think I am concerned for my life, but I am more concerned not to be able to live in Ukraine. Like I traveled a lot, but I couldn't find anything better than Lviv. I love Lviv. I want my kids to live there. I want to be able to visit my parents because there is no way my parents will leave Ukraine, especially when you build the whole life. Can you stop sharing? Yeah. Especially if you build your whole life there, it's hard to just abandon everything. And so, yeah, there are concerns, but if everyone leaves, that means that we gave up and the language that, or history or culture, tradition that we were fighting for centuries will just disappear like that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with Cassandra on this point. So, yeah, you obviously worry about your future. I wanted to add that, particularly for me, after the war started, I participated in many different projects on inclusivity in Ukraine, on inclusivity in cities, and how can we change our cities for the future, because right now there are a lot of people with different injuries, and we have to adapt to our potential maximum to make living for those people easier. And I think that's a very common fear for a lot of Ukrainians, that when you happen to become the victim of Russian aggression, of bombing, you might become, you might have like life injury, and you will have to live with that for the rest of your life. For me, it's even more scary than probably just to die, if you know what I mean. Because yeah, it's hard. It's hard. So yeah, I think you just live with this constant thoughts in your head that but basically anything can happen to you at any time.
It's ironic that tomorrow's meeting is in Anchorage, Alaska. That's a city I know very well. I lived in Anchorage for 16 years, and I was just there last month. And I went on Chat GPT to see if they would reveal various locations of possibilities of where exactly they'll be meeting. And they talked about the Air Force Base, the airport, the hotel downtown, and there's some real security issues there. But it is quite an irony that since Russia sold Alaska to the United States over 100 years ago, and now the parallel is quite interesting and quite unique, and it'll be so fascinating to see what comes out of tomorrow's meeting. Any comments on that, ladies?
If I'm not mistaken, we plan to talk about it on our second meeting today. Ola, who's unfortunately not here right now, prepared something. But unless
Yeah, this is just to add on to what the gals said about feeling unsafe and the decisions that they have to make. I had two girls in particular that I had an experience with, both named Sophia. And one of them, I sit down and have these meetings with students the first couple weeks. We sit down and we get my notebook out, and we go and we find a coffee shop and we talk about their life, what they need, how I can help, what we can do. And this gal, Sophia, was in the Czech Republic, and her mother was there a lot, like a lot of mothers are, as a housemaid. She was cleaning. She was a professional nurse, I think, but she couldn't become a nurse in the Czech Republic. And she was in Prague and she was cleaning, and Sophia was living with her safe. And Sophia said, Mom, I need to go to university back in Ukraine. And her mom and her granny, Sophia's granny still lives in Ukraine, as a lot of grannies do still live in Ukraine. And Sophia went to her mom and said, I need to go. I need to go. I need to be there. I need to be in school there. As dangerous as it is, she said, I want to go. Well, she's 17 years old. And I'm sitting there listening to this. I'm saying, okay. And she came back, and she's now her second year at UCU studying sociology. And it struck me, one, that this girl would have the courage to go back into a war zone, to go to school, because that is where her home is and she has a responsibility. But the second part to me was that her mother said, yes, go. And that to me, sometimes I don't know if I could see that happening in the United States, where a mother would say to their daughter, I respect what your decision is, and you go. And you go and see your granny when you can see your granny. And I just thought, way to go. And then the second girl that I had this year as a freshman, her name was Fia, and she was living in Edinburgh. And she was a little older. She was 20 years old. And she had been working as a translator for injured Ukrainian soldiers in northern England. And she was living in Edinburgh at the time, or Glasgow. She was living in Glasgow, and she loved it. She loved Scotland. She absolutely loved Scotland. And she had the job that she loved there, and her mother was there, and her brother was there, and her life was good. And she was really, really troubled, because it was time to go to university, and she had been accepted into Glasgow. And she says, I need to go and visit my country for 2 weeks to make this decision. And she ended up in Crimea. And she visited, and with that visitation, with that trip, she dropped her university at Glasgow and she enrolled at UCU, because she felt like she had an obligation to support her country and her soldiers and her fellow citizens at a time of need. And I just see this constantly with Ukrainian young people, this dedication to something bigger than themselves, and a resiliency that they are going to get through this thing together, and they are going to support one another. And it is a reason why I'm there. It's a reason why I went there in 2022, and Sophia Shushistka was the first person that I met. And you could just feel this pride in this resiliency. And she was 17, maybe 16, I don't know. And it's there, it's still there. And I think you can see it in these guys, but it just keeps coming to me in waves. Story after story after story. And so these are people that deserve our support as a country.
Bob, just to add to what you're saying, we've had several of these sessions before through the Hope Academy of Senior Professionals. And one of the biggest takeaways from all of these sessions has been consistently, when we ask students what their future plans are, they're going to go away to graduate school. To a person, every one of these students says, I want to be back in Ukraine, because of exactly what you're saying, because of that commitment that they have that is so strong and clearly unbreakable. So for that, we truly commend you, and thank you for your courage.
I'm wondering if any of you would like to comment on your thoughts or feelings about the fact that support from the United States government has wavered since our new administration has come into power. So that's question number one. Question number two is, one of you mentioned the protests that occurred in Ukraine earlier this year related to some of the actions that your government took related to, I think it was an anti-corruption agency that was proposed to be disbanded. And there was a pretty impressive show of passion about that among your country mates. So I'm also interested in any comments that you have related to what I might suggest is a more passive stance here in the United States from both young people and all of us related to some of the turns that our administration is taking.
I can like answer the first question and then go of space for girls. I was working at non-governmental organization while it all happened, like where USAID and other like American organization canceled their financial support to Ukraine, and it was really hard period for us because most of our, I would say, volunteering humanitarian work was funded by different foreign foundations. And for example, talking about UNICEF, it's like, well, famous organization foundation from United Nations. They do not support any projects that are connected with war, like straightly. They can support educational programs. They can support, for example, I know, help for children, but they won't support anything that connected, for example, with people on occupied territories. But USAID, for example, they were supporting that project. And I was the person who was working with occupied territories, especially we were dealing with communication to help people with disabilities leave the occupied territory because they needed special supplies. And after that, all our project was cancelled because of like losing the foundation by USAID. And it is the only one example of that. So it really made hard times for a lot of workers because a lot of people who are working in like non-governmental field, they all lost their jobs because of projects canceled, then you don't have a job. And we had a big, I would say, problem on working field to find new working places for all the people. And we also have a big pause, I would say 3 months or even more, to restart, rebuild all that stuff that was like founded by American organizations, and find new money from Europe or from Asia, Taiwan even. They also started giving their money to our non-governmental field, but it hardly it's not hardly, I'm sorry, it's really had a hard influence on our non-governmental field.
I'll mention Budapest Memorandum, which we signed together with US, United Kingdom, and France, if I'm not mistaken, which meant that in case we give our nuclear weapons to Russians, and with Russia, so in case we give our nuclear weapons to Russians, that all of the countries that signed the document will protect us. And unfortunately, one of the signers attacked us. So that means that other countries that signed the document supposed to protect us, which in my opinion means that US including has to help us out in that situation. But I get that with current government and the situation that's going on in the US and views of people, it's getting harder and harder. And I get that war seems so far away to you, but you need to understand that democratic society will fall if we fall, and Europe might be next. And if Europe next, who knows what's going to happen then? So war, I want to say that war can be done, can't be done just with ceasefire. And I know that without fighting, without weapons, it cannot be done, unfortunately.
Many of the people in this room, when we were your age, we were concerned with Vietnam, and we lost friends and family in that war. Have you had friends and family that you were close to that you lost?
Yes, we do. I think that everybody in Ukraine has, if not a relative, then a close person or friend or people that they like knew that like passed away because of a Russian full-scale invasion. It can be like talking about soldiers here, military field on the front line. Every day we have like new funerals. I also recommend you to Google Mars Field in Lviv. It's a like huge cemetery for Ukrainian soldiers, and it is so touching when you're looking at that, because there are a lot of flags, and you know that every flag is, it means that like every life that like stopped because of full-scale invasion. And also we have a lot of civilians that died. Last month my close friend lost her mom and her younger sister because drone attacked their flat, and they were in shelter, but the whole building was destroyed. So people in shelter like were also unsafe, and they died immediately. So I think it's about like everybody in Ukraine.
Yeah, I really agree with Irina, and that's not even like an exaggeration that everybody has lost somebody, because there are different levels of that, I would say, because I think it's important to mention here that there are probably multiple hundred of thousands of children that were stolen from Ukraine right now. They are not even not all of them are orphans, they are just stolen from their parents, or their parents were killed by Russians in occupation. If I'm not mistaken, that's 19,500 approximately, something like that. That's the amount of children that were stolen. So parents lose their children in this way also. Families are divided because of occupation, because of propaganda. Even in my family, my cousin, my sister, who was my best friend in my childhood, we spent our whole childhood together. She moved to Russia even before the war started, and unfortunately she fell under Russian propaganda. And when the war started, we tried to talk, but eventually, because of how different our views were, we lost contact, and to this day we haven't talked. And yeah, so you lose a lot of people in different ways.
Two of you studied in the United States, I think earlier this year or last year. I'm curious if you felt that your fellow students at the respective universities where you studied understood and empathized with your situation as citizens and students in Ukraine.
So that was why we were there for, to show that war influenced all of us. And while being in the United States, we knew that people are tired of the topic of war, just because you hear about it for the third year in a row. and you understand that, okay, we're giving money to them, but nothing changes. However, those support that you gave us actually meant a lot. It still means a lot for all of us. And that's why it was our responsibility to show that, okay, the war is still going on. So we were trying to show people who we talked to show our colleagues, the students we were with, that war is a real thing. But we were trying to use our personal stories to show that. So as I know, all of us, all Ukrainian students who were in the United States, we were making events showing that, okay, this is my family, they're in shelter right now, this is what's going on. So we were trying to promote that, to promote the saying that, okay, war is still going on, and we're still under attack. So yeah, this was one of our responsibilities while we were in the United States, to show that to show the real situation, to show the real thing, what's going on. So to not let people believe in the propaganda that we have. And we were trying to describe everything and to prove that, okay, we really need your help and your support, and this is what's going on. And I really feel that we achieved some good results in that, in making those events, in making those lectures about Ukrainian history, in sharing our personal stories. So it was really hard sometimes to prove people that the war is still going on and that we are still under attack. But we were trying our best to do that, because it's really hard to prove something to people who hear about the war for a third year in a row, not knowing what's going on due to this propaganda. Because you know that social media works that way, that you can see only the news that kind of represents the bubble you live in. And for sometimes the news about the war in Ukraine are not into the bubble you live in. That's why you don't see the news and you don't know what's going on. And our task was to show that, okay, this is still happening, and we were trying our best to do that. And I think in some cases we achieved some good results.
I'd like to add, since I've been to US as well. In my case, in war to my like American mates felt like a trend. It wasn't like in a news field anymore. So every time I was saying from Ukraine, it wasn't like there were no questions. And once I was bringing something up, they were surprised that war is still happening in Ukraine. And I faced difficulties, as Maria was talking about events that you could organize. Every single exchange student had possibility to organize culture night. But when it came to my culture night, it was supposed to happen right after a meeting of Zelensky and President Trump. And as we all know what happened, there was a conflict, and my event that was supposed to be not about war, but just about culture, history, was temporarily postponed because it was too political. So I find it weird that once we face like tiny bit of a slight conflict of interest, it becomes too political all of a sudden. But I kept pushing and I still made the event happen.
I see that we're coming to an end. Can I? So I'll just shortly add that I also had some experience with different international exchanges and talking to people from other nationalities. And the thing is that I never felt that people from other countries understand me, but actually they couldn't understand it, because you cannot understand how it is to live in war if you do not experience that. And do not get me wrong, I would never wish anybody to go through experience of war just to understand me, for example. But the best they could do, and I always was telling that to my international friends, is to try to understand. And to try to understand, you can show interest, you can ask questions, you can ask Ukrainian people, or in my case, like me, Ukrainian friend, for different publics, different websites where they can track news, because we know which websites we can use, which websites are reliable, so you can get reliable news, not something propaganda related. You also can get news about if there is some bombing. You can check on your Ukrainian friends or people from Ukraine that you know, and that's how you can try to understand what it's like. And it's really important. It's really important. Some people from my exchanges, still to this day, it's been like almost 2 years through my since my first Erasmus, and those people, they are still checking on me. Some of them are preparing to come to Ukraine right now because they know how I live in Lviv, and they feel that they can go to Lviv because they know that probably they know that if I survive there, they can go visit and see for themselves how it's like. So that's really important.
Can I add one thing on? You as citizens, as voters in the United States have power. The programs that took Cassandra to Southern Indiana and Masha to the Citadel, those programs the plug is being pulled on programs like that by the Trump administration. The Fulbright is being pulled. The plug is being pulled. These programs, you need Cassandra. We need Cassandra at Southern Indiana. We need Masha at the Citadel. Those are critical in so many ways in this country. You have a voice, you have a representative, you have a senator. Get on the phone, call them and tell them, I've listened to these young people. We need these programs. Europe does a great job with Erasmus at integrating Ukraine. I am afraid that the United States is putting up a block to immigrant students from around the globe, and that is not healthy. What happens is you need these young people in front of young people, in front of you. We need that. You got to get on the phone. You got to call your representatives.
Well, we've come to the end of our time for the first session. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for our students. We're so privileged to have you be part of this and to share your thoughts and ideas with us. And we will take a break, and we will resume in 2 hours at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for our second session. Thank you all. We look forward to seeing you back here at 1 p.m.
Thank you.